34-year-old Nicholas Finley now is charged with capital murder after detectives say he robbed and killed his 29-year-old girlfriend, Marshana Struggs. It happened at the park at Cumberland Apartments on July 19th.
July 19th, 2024, the park at Cumberland Apartments in Houston. Footsteps pound against concrete. Frantic breathing, a woman runs for her life between parked cars and apartment buildings. Behind her, a man with a gun, his face twisted with rage. She jumped out and had a confrontation with him, and he shot her a couple times. That's what the neighbors said. But those first shots? Just the beginning. The woman darts between vehicles, desperately trying every escape route. She pulls at car door handles, locked. She screams for help. No one comes. She keeps running until her body can't anymore. This is the story of Marshana Struggs, 29 years old, a mother, a daughter, a sister. What began as a dispute over a car would end in a hail of bullets. He made it into my truck, I guess, and he shot her 4 or 5 more times over there, and then she managed to make it over here at that point, and he shot her like 8 more times. 15 shots total, 15 decisions to pull the trigger. The neighbor who witnessed it all hid in her bathroom, hands over her head, as the gunfire exploded outside her window. She could hear him shouting threats, promising to kill everyone in the house, everyone who tried to help Marshana. I just had my hands over my head, and it was so loud, I thought he was coming in the house, because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house. He was going to kill us for helping her.
In her car, and she jumped out and had a confrontation with him, and he shot her a couple times. My boyfriend pushed me back in the house, and we just went in the bathroom, and I just had my hands over my head, and it was so loud. I thought he was coming in the house because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house. He was going to kill us for help.
This wasn't a random act of violence. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was Nicholas Finley, Marshana's boyfriend, hunting her down through an apartment complex in broad daylight. But why? What pushes someone to execute their partner in public? What happened in the hours before that made a traffic stop escalate into murder? And most importantly, could anyone have stopped it? In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through the final hours of Marshana Struggs' life. We'll show you the warning signs nobody caught, the moments where everything could have changed, and the brutal reality of domestic violence that claims lives every single day. Welcome to our channel. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button to join our community. This is 15 bullets, a car, a chase, and a mother's final moments. But first, have you ever witnessed something so horrific you couldn't believe it was real? Something that made you question everything you thought you knew about human nature? Drop it in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize danger before it's too late. Before she became a headline, before she became another statistic in Harris County's domestic violence epidemic, Marshana Struggs was a 29-year-old black woman with dreams bigger than the Louisiana town she left behind. She was our rock, her sister Kimani wrote after her death. Not was going to be, not could have been, was already. At just 29 years old, Marshana had become the person her family leaned on. Loyal, kind, beautiful. The words family uses when they're trying to explain who you were to strangers who will never get the chance to know. Marshana hadn't been in Houston long. The move from Louisiana was recent, a bold step for a single mother with an 8-year-old son. She packed up their lives and headed to Texas, chasing better opportunities, better schools, better everything for the child who was her world. That's what mothers do. They sacrifice, they relocate, they rebuild from scratch, all for the tiny humans who depend on them. Her son won't be quoted in this story. His name won't appear in these pages. But make no mistake, he's at the center of everything. The reason she moved, the reason she worked, the reason she tried to get her car back on July 19th. The car, we'll come back to that. Marshana didn't have time to put down deep roots in Houston, didn't have time to build the network of friends and supporters that might have protected her, didn't have time to show her son all the reasons she brought him to this new city. But she did make an impression on her neighbor, Shawnee Drury. Beautiful, kind, and a loving mother, Drury said, describing a woman she barely knew but instantly recognized as good. That's the thing about genuine people. They radiate their truth even in brief encounters. What were Mershana's dreams beyond giving her son a better life? We don't know. Maybe a career advancement, maybe home ownership, maybe just peace. The mundane, everyday peace that comes from not having to look over your shoulder, not having to calculate your words, not having to wonder if today is the day he snaps, because there was a he in Merciana's life. Nicholas Finley, 34 years old, her boyfriend, the man who would eventually hunt her through an apartment complex. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. What we know is this. Merciana was trying to build something in Houston. A life, a future, a safe haven for herself and her child. She was doing what millions of mothers do every day. Sacrificing, hustling, making it work with whatever resources she had. One of those resources was her car, the vehicle that would transport her to work, her son to school, both of them to doctor's appointments and grocery stores and all the places life demands you go. A car isn't just transportation in America. It's freedom, it's necessity, it's survival. And on July 19th, Nicholas Finley had her car. Why did he have it? What was their arrangement? Was this a one-time thing or part of a pattern? These are the questions that hover around every domestic violence case. The background details that seem insignificant until they suddenly, violently, aren't. What we do know is that Merciana wanted her car back, needed it back, and that simple request, a woman asking for her own property, would trigger a chain of events ending with her body on the concrete, riddled with bullets. But before we get to how she died, remember how she lived, as someone's rock, someone's mother, someone trying to build a better tomorrow. Nicholas Finley, 34, 6 years older than Merciana. The age gap itself means nothing. Plenty of healthy relationships exist between people of different ages. But in the world of domestic violence, age gaps often translate to power imbalances, experience gaps, resource gaps. We don't know when they met or how long they'd been together. Those details died with Merciana. What we do know is that by July 19, 2024, Nicholas Finley had access to her car, and that tells us something. In America, cars equal freedom, the ability to go where you want, when you want, without permission or explanation. For a single mother in a sprawling city like Houston with limited public transportation, a car isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. So when someone takes control of your car, they're not just taking metal and rubber, they're taking your ability to work, to shop, to escape. We see domestic violence occur in all facets, explains Chanika Brown, Chief Program Officer at the Houston Area Women's Center. We see that through physical violence, we see that through sexual violence. We also see that through economic and financial abuse. That is a way that abusers are able to keep the survivors captive, not a word chosen lightly by professionals who deal with domestic violence daily. When an abuser controls your transportation, they control where you can go. When they control your money, they control what you can buy. When they control your phone, they control who you can call for help. Was Nicholas Finley controlling Merciana's car as a way to control her movements? We can't say for certain, but we know this. On the day she died, he had her car. She needed it back, and when she tried to reclaim it, he responded with lethal violence. That's not a normal reaction to a property dispute. That's the reaction of someone who views control as their right and resistance as a capital offense. Look at the pattern that emerges when you study domestic homicides. They rarely happen out of nowhere. They're usually the final explosion after a long buildup of controlling behaviors, isolation from friends and family, monitoring movements and communications, financial control, emotional manipulation, threats, and finally, violence. Each step designed to make the victim more dependent, more afraid, more trapped. By the time a relationship reaches the violence stage, the victim has often been conditioned to believe they deserve it or can't escape it. Their support networks have been severed, their financial independence compromised, their self-worth demolished. We don't know which of these tactics Nicholas Finley used on Marciana Struggs. We only know the outcome. But here's what experts at the Houston Area Women's Center have observed. Since Hurricane Beryl hit the region, they've seen a significant increase in domestic violence calls. Natural disasters create isolation, financial stress, forced proximity to abusers, all the conditions that allow control to tighten and violence to flourish. Had the hurricane created additional pressure in Marciana and Nicholas's relationship? Had it limited her options for escape? Had it pushed an already volatile situation past the breaking point? These are the questions that haunt domestic violence cases, the what-ifs and if-onlys that survivors and families replay endlessly, searching for the moment when everything could have been different. What if someone had recognized the warning signs? What if Marciana had access to resources? What if the system designed to protect women like her hadn't failed so completely? Because make no mistake, when a woman is gunned down in broad daylight by her boyfriend, multiple systems have failed. Law enforcement, social services, community networks, all the safety nets meant to catch people before they fall through the cracks. Before we continue with the events of July 19th, we want to hear from you. What's the most controlling behavior you've ever experienced or witnessed in a relationship? The comments section is a safe space to share your stories. Because sometimes naming the behavior is the first step to recognizing its danger. July 19, 2024, a Friday in Houston. The kind of day where the Texas heat makes the air shimmer above the pavement. Nicholas Finley is driving Marciana's car. Not his car, her car. Remember that detail, it matters. A police officer spots something wrong, maybe a broken taillight, maybe expired tags, maybe Finley's driving. Whatever it is, it's enough for blue lights to flash in the rearview mirror. Traffic stop, standard procedure. The officer asks for license, registration, proof of insurance, and here's where the day takes its first turn toward tragedy. Finley doesn't have Marciana's insurance card, so he calls her, asks her to bring it to him, a seemingly normal request between partners, the kind of thing that happens in relationships every day. My roommate took her to go down there and he wasn't there. Shawnee Drury, Marciana's neighbor, would later tell reporters. So, when they came back to the apartments, he was sitting in her car. Let that sink in. Finley called Marciana for help. She and a neighbor went to his location, but when they arrived, he wasn't there. Instead, they returned to find him back at their apartment complex, sitting in her car. Was it miscommunication or something more calculated? We'll never know. What we do know is what happened next. She jumped out and had a confrontation with him, Drury recounted. Picture this moment. Marciana, frustrated after a wasted trip, sees Finley in her car, the car she needs for work, for her son, for survival in a sprawling city. She approaches him, confronts him, asks for her property back. Back to back, it should have been a simple conversation, a disagreement at worst, the kind of thing couples work through every day without violence. Instead, Nicholas Finley pulled out a pistol and started shooting. The first bullets hit Marciana as she stood there, probably still processing what was happening. The human brain isn't wired to immediately comprehend that someone you know, someone you trusted enough to be in a relationship with, is trying to kill you. But survival instincts kick in fast. Marciana ran through the apartment complex, between buildings, between parked cars, looking for any escape route, any hiding place, any salvation from the man hunting her down. Behind her, Finley followed, gun in hand, firing, reloading, firing again. Inside her apartment, Drury heard the shots, heard the screaming, heard the footsteps, and made the split-second decision that might have saved her own life. She locked her door and hid in the bathroom. I just had my hands over my head, she later told reporters, the trauma still fresh in her voice. It was so loud. I thought he was coming in the house because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house. He He was going to kill us for helping her. This is the moment the story transforms from domestic dispute to active hunting ground. Nicholas Finley wasn't just trying to hurt Marciana. He was threatening everyone who had helped her, everyone who had shown her kindness, everyone who had witnessed his violence. That's the thing about domestic abusers. They don't just want to control their partners. They want to control the narrative, the witnesses, the evidence, anything that might hold them accountable. Outside, Marciana kept running, kept fighting, kept trying to live. She made it to Drury's truck, tried the door. Maybe it was unlocked. Maybe she thought she could drive away. Maybe she just wanted something solid between her and the bullets. It didn't matter. Finley caught up, fired again, 4 or 5 more times, according to Drury. Somehow, impossibly, Marciana kept moving, kept fighting, kept trying to survive for her son, for herself, for the future she'd moved to Houston to build. She made it a little further before her body gave out, before the blood loss and trauma became too much, before her legs simply wouldn't carry her another step. She collapsed, and Nicholas Finley, the man who was supposed to love her, stood over her fallen body and fired 8 more times. 8 more times. This wasn't rage, this wasn't passion. This was execution. In the apartments around them, people hid, called 911, prayed they wouldn't be next, listened to the gunshots that kept coming long after they should have stopped. 15 bullets total, 15 decisions to pull the trigger, 15 moments when Nicholas Finley could have stopped but chose to continue. And all because a woman asked for her car back. All because she dared to assert ownership over her own property. All because she refused to remain under his control. The traffic stop that morning was just the trigger, the spark that ignited a powder keg of control, possession, and deadly entitlement that had been building for who knows how long. But the true horror of July 19th was just beginning, because what Nicholas Finley did after the shooting reveals even more about the cold calculation behind his violence. Marciana Strux ran for her life through the park at Cumberland Apartments, not in darkness, not in some remote location, but in broad daylight, surrounded by homes filled with people, people who heard everything, people who saw everything, people who will never forget what they witnessed. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez would later describe it clinically. She later collapsed. It was then that her boyfriend, who was armed with a pistol, allegedly stood over her and unloaded gunshots into her body. Unloaded, as if Marciana were a target, an object, not a human being, not a mother, not someone's daughter, sister, friend. 8 more bullets into a woman who was already down, already wounded, already no threat to him whatsoever. 15 shots total. That's not self-defense. That's not a momentary loss of control. That's not even rage. That's extermination. When the gunfire finally stopped, the only sounds were Finley's footsteps as he walked away, as he took Marciana's purse, her ID, her money, her phone, all the things that connected her to help and resources. As he got into her car, the very thing they had argued about, and drove away. Think about that level of cold calculation. After executing a woman in public, his next move was robbery, taking her possessions, claiming ownership of the things she died trying to protect, leaving her body on the concrete, leaving witnesses traumatized, leaving a community shattered, leaving an 8-year-old boy without his mother. The statistics tell us Marciana Strux is one of many. In unincorporated Harris County alone, intimate partner murders account for about 35% of all homicides in 2024. But statistics don't bleed out on concrete, people do. Harris County Sheriff's deputies caught up with Finley later that day. He was charged with capital murder, not just murder, but capital murder. The distinction matters. In Texas, capital murder can carry the death penalty. It's reserved for the most heinous killings, including murder in the course of committing another felony, like robbery. Court records show Finley was denied bond. He sits in Harris County Jail awaiting trial while Murciana's family plans a funeral. Her sister Kimani started a GoFundMe to raise money for funeral expenses and to support Murciana's 8-year-old son. The campaign's description is gut-wrenching in its simplicity. A sister trying to bring her murdered sibling's body back to Louisiana while figuring out how to care for the child left behind. Meanwhile, the witnesses to Murciana's murder are left with psychological wounds that may never fully heal. Shawnee Drury, who hid in her bathroom during the shooting, now lives with the sounds of gunfire and dying echoing in her memory. The trauma of wondering if she would be next, the horror of emerging to find her neighbor's body outside her home. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez didn't mince words about what happened to Murciana or the epidemic it represents. Love shouldn't hurt. It's important to recognize the signs of abuse and take action against violence against women. His statistics are staggering. 35% of all murders in unincorporated Harris County in 2024 involve intimate partners, more than 1 in 3. Experts from the Houston Area Women's Center emphasize that leaving an abuser is often the most dangerous time for victims. When an abuser has a gun, the risk of being killed increases by 500%. 500%. Murciana Struggs might have been trying to break free when she confronted Finley about her car. If so, she became part of a tragic statistic: women killed not despite leaving, but because of it. What would you do if you suspected someone you know was in a dangerous relationship? Share your thoughts below. Your insight might save someone's life. Murciana Struggs isn't just one woman. She's one of thousands killed by intimate partners every year in America. A national epidemic hiding in plain sight. When a gun enters an abusive relationship, the risk of murder jumps 500%. Not 50%, 500%. A weapon transforms control into killing power with one trigger pull. Isolation isn't just a COVID concept. It's an abuser's most powerful tool. Cut victims off from family, from friends, from resources, from escape routes. Hurricane Beryl created perfect conditions for abusers in Houston, trapping victims with their tormentors while cutting off outside help. The warning signs flash red before the blood flows: controlling behavior, jealousy, isolation tactics, threats, taking phones, cars, money. These aren't relationship problems. They are danger signals. If you're in danger, resources exist. Houston Area Women's Center, 71352821221. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. Crisis Text Line. Text START to 88788. But resources only work if victims can access them. That's where community comes in. Neighbors, friends, co-workers. The people who might notice something wrong before it's too late, before 15 bullets, before a child loses his mother, before another woman dies trying to take back what's hers. Somewhere in Houston tonight, an 8-year-old boy is trying to understand why his mother isn't coming home. Why the fresh start they moved for ended on blood-stained concrete. Why 15 bullets were the price for asking for her own car back. Before she died, Murciana told her sister she was finally building the life she wanted for her son. A life he'll now live without her. So here's the question that should haunt us all. Who around you right now is silently screaming for help?